Marky Dragon, also known as Marcus Eichenberry in real life, and welcome to another roundtable for Shroud of the Avatar. We have a special guest with us today. It's Stefan Daniele. Did I pronounce your name right? Is it Stephen or Stefan?
It's Stephen Daniele.
Oh, jeez.
No worries.
I haven't made that big of a goof in myself since like 1999. Well, maybe 2000. Welcome to the show. So I do know that you were I spoke to Rick and he said you are Artiste Extraordinaire.
He's very kind. I am the concept art lead for Shroud of the Avatar.
Yeah. So a lot of the visuals that we see are inspired by you, I would think.
That's correct. I work initially when Shroud was just an idea, and we were working very closely in putting together the Kickstarter. It was Chris Spears, Lord British. Do you prefer Lord British or Richard Garriott?
I think people know both.
Okay.
Yeah, so either way.
I know him as Richard. The Lord British is a little before my time. And the designer at that time, Ray Shelley, and hammering out the details of what the Kickstarter would be, putting those things together, and once we got the ball rolling, it was really Chris who drove a lot of that and where to go with the visuals. Once we went public and the Kickstarter was out there, it became very apparent very quickly that the community was really excited about a very traditional medieval fantasy Ultima-like experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You became a superstar at that point, didn't you? I mean, you have your pin of the Avatar show, and people just seem to go nuts over your artwork.
It's very flattering. I think it was the middle of May, perhaps early May, when Gina came to me and she said she had to make a separate YouTube channel for Pen of the Avatar. And I was just a deer in the headlights. Why? She was like, wow, actually it's really popular. And it keeps floating to the top of the video choices on the Portalarium YouTube page. So it's like, oh, okay, wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I am not an artist, and so I am in awe of your talents.
Appreciate it.
So, so tell us about how the artwork that you do translates to what we see in the game.
So, it starts with a conversation or a discussion of ideas, brainstorming. And Richard has some ideas of where he would like the characters to go and just kind of a basic template to start with those characters. So we'll sit down, we'll have a quick conversation about that, and I'll start coming up with just some rough thumbnails and working through ideas. And there's a couple of different approaches. You know, the first image is usually one that's very action-packed and is it's more of a splash image to get people excited about the character or the object or the environment. And then the next batch of art tends to be much more production-focused. So in the case of a character, it's very static. You can see the front and the back, the side as needed. And from that point, sit down with the production team, talk about the skeleton that the character is going to use for animation, if there's any concerns with the concept that could be a problem with animation. I am a fan of plate mail armor that has the very high collars that protect the neck and the head, if you remember that from John Borman's Excalibur. And so we've had to make some conceptual modifications to that particular type of style so that, you know, if your character is swinging a two-handed weapon above their head, you don't have animation collisions.
Oh, so yeah, so your arm should not go through the collar.
Exactly.
Ooh, and the gods have spoken. Thunderstorm overhead, I guess.
Uh-oh.
Yes, well, if the power goes out, hell, I don't know what we'll do.
We'll just keep talking?
I have UPSs on everything, so it should stay up.
Excellent. So from that point, sit down with the character artist, and for me, concept is very much about here is a visual interpretation of a spoken or written idea. And from that concept, the production artist, be it environment or character, they will take that and they will put their own artistic influence on it. Kind of, I call it the spin. It's like each one of us along this pipeline process adds a bit of flavor, a bit of spin, and then when it's all finished, Shroud will ultimately be the product of all our endeavors. So the character artist will build that out in 3D. He'll actually build a high-resolution polygon model, which could be upwards of millions of triangles. And potentially he'll be sculpting pieces in ZBrush, sometimes Mudbox. It depends on the preference of the artist. And then hard surface things like swords and armor and shields tend to be done in a 3D package like Maya, or in our case we use 3D Studio Max or 3D Max now.
So it's there's a lot of teamwork that goes involved, and it's not just as simple as putting pen to paper and then all of a sudden it shows up in the game.
No, not at all. It involves many creatives. It involves a lot of input, and it's a bit time consuming to make all that happen. But the end result is, you have a fully functional character in a 3D world that is a lot of fun to run around with and do all sorts of interesting things. Yeah,
well, and you need, especially like the characters, they need to be appealing to the eye and fun to control. I mean, because they are, a representation of the player. That is the player.
Correct.
The player does not have their own real body at that point. At least not when you're totally immersed in the game.
No, we want you to lose yourself in the game. My best gaming experiences are always when I completely have lost track of time, and I prefer either third-person or first-person experiences to that end. It's much easier to get into the story, identify with the character, and play.
Now, I recently did an episode of my show that was graphics versus gameplay.
Okay.
And now I know that you're an artist, so you may lean that way. But can a game be done well without having really good graphics?
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, would Minecraft be an example of that?
Yes. Minecraft, the Beatles of the game industry.
Yeah.
Yes. I put many a day into Minecraft. It is a phenomenal game, and as an artist, my initial reaction was, "Oh Lord, is this what
did they do to this, or what didn't they do to it?" Right.
And now I look at it as an incredible challenge. It's how do you make art within this very small visual box? And I know there's a lot of mod nows. I still prefer the square moon and the square sun as opposed to a round moon or a round sun. I do prefer the John Smith texture pack, and I'm actually hoping they put that on the console at some point.
I love the 360 version. So,
yes.
And I bought an Xbox One just so we could play Minecraft on it. But okay, let's move on to Shroud of the Avatar. Now, did you get to meet Frank when he was down there at Rooster Teeth?
I did. So Frank, we didn't get a chance to really hang out, but
Frank, wave hello to everybody. You got to say something so you're on camera there.
All right, hello everybody, and I had a fun down in Austin, and I'll tell you, when I was getting my tour of Portalarium, we walked into a dark office, and there was this shrouded figure sitting at a desk. And he turned around, and there were those little sparkling eyes looking out at me. And then he threw the hood back, and it's Stephen Daniele. And I'm like, oh, you're the most popular guy on the team.
I think you're not quite used to
Stop that
this
right now.
attention. Yes. Okay.
Which is
Richard,
good.
Chris, and Star, those are the most popular guys on the team.
Yeah. So Frank, tell us a little bit about what you saw there, and especially as it pertains to the artwork.
Okay, well, I didn't really see a whole lot of artwork. Stephen was researching character models when I was there, and I got to sit in Chris's office and look over his shoulder, and they opened up the editor. I don't know what their editor is called. Is it Unity? Is that what Unity 3D is?
That is correct.
And he showed me the wireframes that make the characters and the pathing and how the lights work and the interiors of things, and the modular nature of the dungeons, and how they're put together with these 3D tiles that sit off in a dark corner of the editor. And so it was pretty fascinating. But while I was there, I didn't get to see much of the kind of concept art that Stephen does when Pen of the Avatar is on.
Yeah, and for those of you who haven't seen, Frank did do some videos while he was there, and so Frank, make sure you post a link to your videos at the end of the show in chat, and then those of you watching on YouTube, it's in the description. There's a link to the videos that he shot. So, okay, we have several of the people that are joining us here. We have Brian, we have Evil Overlord,
I'm back.
we have Julian, we have Matthew, and so hello guys, welcome to the show. What kind of questions do you have for Stephen here? Oh, Matthew's talking, but he's muted. Still don't hear him. All I see is him talking with nothing. Yeah. So.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Going back to what we were talking about earlier, I noticed in the demo that, I'm sure you noticed it too, that when he sits down, the sword went through the fabric. Is that something really hard to fix, or is it like making the texture a solid texture, or how does that work? So
The sword went through the fabric of his cloak.
Yeah, well, I think it might have been his tunic, but I'm not sure. When he sat down and put the sword between his legs.
And I'll put that video up right now for the people watching the live show.
I just heard what you were talking about earlier. I was just wondering how hard that is to deal with that type of thing.
It's one of those. So with the animation, you've got a skeleton controlling the character, and he's put together with bones, and then the weapons and the fabric are also boned. So it's probably just a case of adjusting the position of where the animation goes, and then potentially we might need to add a few more bones to the tunic so that instead of it being so flat, it will actually fold out of the way. Just stretch those UVs appropriately.
Yeah, I kind of have messed around with Unity, and I noticed that unless you tell it that things are solid, that you can just kind of walk through everything. So I figured it'd be something similar. If anyone doesn't know who I am, I'm Link of Hyro. I'm one of the main moderators on the Google Plus community. I'm always in the chat, so that's who I am.
Excellent. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So, okay. Now, Evil, I wish you were on camera, man, because you have your Shroud of Evil.
You guys missed it earlier. But anyways, no, I shut down my laptop because I didn't have Google Plus installed, and I had to catch a meal between shows.
Yeah.
So, but next time.
Yeah. So, what has been your biggest challenges? Now, I know you said you started with the Kickstarter, and you were here for that or before that. And what was that like going through that? Not many game companies have been through this crowdfunding so far, and Shroud of the Avatar was very successful. Was it $1 million that you guys were shooting for, and you got just right at $2 million at the end of it?
Correct. I think we were around 2.1, shy of 2.2, so it was double of what we were looking for. which is really exciting because with $1 million we would be able to deliver just the base game experience, and the more that we have coming in, the better game and longer we can keep the game going. So it's really exciting.
So I notice in your office there that you have like a drawing board behind you.
Correct.
And,
this is my home studio.
And now when you're hand drawing these things, how do you get it onto the computer? You just scan it, or you take a picture of it, or what's the process on that?
So if I do things by hand, and that's originally how I had started with just drawing live for the Kickstarter with the pens and markers, just scanning the image into a type of format, either TIFF, PNG, or JPEG, sometimes PDF. TIFF will certainly give you the highest resolution and least amount of, well, there won't be any decompression, compression. And then I'll just bring that into Photoshop and start cleaning it up and adjusting it digitally.
Now, you mentioned that there was other people that work with you and everything, and you talked about when he was asking about the sword going through the cloak or whatever, about boning things or adding bones to them and everything. And how does that translate when the I guess I'm fascinated by, if I'm trying to draw something, like I'm trying to draw a hand here or something like that, is that not a whole bunch of pictures as a whole bunch of art as you turn it, or do you just take the two sides and just wrap them around, or how do you make it look real?
So it's very much, and the hand is a perfect analogy. So in our hand and with our body, we have a skeleton comprised of bones, and I think we're 206 bones on average. And those bones have tendons and muscles, so we can contract and move them, and then that's all wrapped in skin, and then we have some little bit of bone shells protecting the end of our fingers. So when you create something in 3D, which I had a pen handy, I draw on my hand, I have a series of just bones, but essentially they're just splines, lines, and then they'll have control points, and you'll be able to move them a certain amount of degrees. So this finger can actually rotate, 90 degrees, and then at the first knuckle, you can rotate that down another 90 degrees. And then through the series of animations, the animator will just move those bones into the correct position. Now, you attach the skin, just as the skin is wrapped around our muscles and our bones, the skin or polygon mesh is wrapped, or the bone is inside that. So when I move this bone, the skin comes with it. There's a way you can highlight all the vertex points and say, these vertexes that make this finger are associated with this bone, and when you do this, all those vertexes go with it. And then to make your hand look real, you can take this into a 3D sculpting package. So you just build this out of simple cylinders, and then you go in and actually sculpt those cylinders and that block that is your hand to look like a real hand.
I guess. Okay, so a good analogy would be sculpting a statue, like in real life, was what you're doing on the computer.
Yep.
So the artist sculpting the statue obviously has to deal with all of the sides, and I say all because it's not just like four sides. There's it's a lot more complex than that.
Yes, and in some cases you're certainly doing fingernails and the cuticles, all sorts of details. I've even, I don't know about that, but I was going to say you can even get to the point where you're doing all the pores and skin, But at that point, that resolution, unless you're doing film, it's probably better just to paint something like that and do it in the diffuse texture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Brian, Evil, Frank, Matthew, any more questions? I mean, I can keep coming up with more, but I don't want to hog everything.
When you do the like the kind of 3D modeling and stuff, do people ever use the Wacom tablets, or is that strict mainly for drawing, or is there a way that you could use it for that?
You can use it for that, and it just depends on the artist. So,
is there like other types of input? I mean, I guess they like have like 3D scanning type devices and stuff like that.
They do. They do have high-resolution 3D scans. I haven't worked with high-res 3D scans in about 6 years, and at that point, the technology was not to a level that I think it should have been. With the time and the amount you'd have to clean up on the scan, you're actually better off just modeling it yourself. So, depending on the artist, I know when I work in 3D, I prefer a mouse. When I paint digitally, I use a Wacom tablet. I'm hoping at some point I'll get a Cintiq, because I have used a Cintiq, and that's literally just drawing on the video screen. And one of our character artists, Jeff, actually brought in his own Cintiq and prefers to model and sculpt using that. So
with I got a question here from the chat room from CCC, and he's asking, will there be seasons like snow, sun, rain in the game? And I'll add on to that, how do you draw something like that?
Hey, CCC. That's an excellent question. I don't know what the actual answer is. Chris Spears is going to be more suited to answer that. I do know that we are committed to rain and day-night cycles. So to create rain, how do you create rain? It's a series of smoke and mirrors. The first thing you want to do is you want to have a fog or distance fog that you can control as the rain comes and goes. So as it starts to rain, you bring the fog in closer because there's much more moisture in the atmosphere and it obscures things at a distance. You can also use just a simple texture of a falling raindrop and then animate that texture on a flat plane and then create layers of those planes. There's certainly going to be issues with overdraw or Z fighting. So you want to make sure that your engine has something where you can actually tag the elements that create your rain, so you don't run into those problems. And you can actually tell them to draw in certain orders. Then with that, you want to do things like splash effect on the screen. You want to get an effect on the terrain, so as characters run around, you get splashing on the ground, the sound, that sort of thing. And then it's the same thing with snow. And usually, one of the things that you can do with snow to get snow to show up on objects and on the ground and characters is to use a mask based on the direction of the normal. And the normal is a bump map, but essentially it does it in 3D. It's the purple looking thing that looks like you were looking at it through 3D glasses. What you can do is tell it on the upward facing normal you can mask that out, and then you can animate a texture to say, at a certain amount of time, switch this out with a new texture, and you can have snow show up. It'll kind of sprinkle in, and then it'll get thicker, and then you just move the player through a path, and then at a certain point, you've got snow everywhere.
Mm-hmm. I've always thought it would be cool if my character, when I'm up in cold areas, would actually get frost on his mustache like happens to me when I'm up in really cold places. Getting little icicles on your mustache. So, let's see here.
I hope that answers your question, CCC.
Yeah. Frank, you got a question?
Yeah, I have a question about the color palette.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a restricted color palette that these colors will give us the flavor we want, so we're only going to use these? And if so, is that something you can publish to the community so we can use it on our own artwork?
So when we talk about the inspiration for Ultima, or when we talk about Ultima, one of the few things where we're all agreed upon is the color palette. And the color palette is rich and saturated and very vibrant. So with the quality of games that you can produce today, we're going to do a combination of where the foreground is very rich and vibrant and punchy, and then we'll use a depth fog and potentially some mip mapping techniques so it deadens it, gets kind of grayer and monochromatic, and pushes the background further back. So we get a lot more depth, but that foreground is still vibrant. As far as specific color palettes, it's really going to depend on the environment that you're in. When we're in the lava fields, if you remember the concept I did with the big statue with the lava dragon on her shoulder, the succubus, that's a very monochromatic palette. There's hints of blues and greens with a touch of purple, and then you have the bright red orange from the lava. Those controlled palettes in outside and wilderness environments will be a lot easier to control than, let's say, when you get into a town or a village. I'm really excited to see what the towns, villages, and cities look once everyone starts putting their own houses in there. It's going to be beautiful. Chaos all over the place. I can't wait.
Am I going to be able to paint mine neon yellow?
I don't know if neon yellow will be an option, but betting that we'll be able to paint it.
You know, I'm just thinking, what's the most offensive thing I could come up with to the eyes?
If we could do that, I think everyone's going to do, you know, it's going to be bright yellow, turquoise, pink. I'm sure there'll be a lot of pink. We've had discussions about should we put limits, or should it be a free-for-all? How do we want to approach this?
What's your opinion on this? Should you remove some colors or some color areas in favor of keeping the game more pleasing to the eye?
Those are points of discussion for us right now, limiting that palette and figuring out how that tech's going to work. For me, I would like to limit the palette and keep things reasonable, because I think the physical shapes and the diversity of the houses that you can choose from are going to be so extreme. It's going to be much better if the palettes are unified a little bit. That's just my opinion, though. I don't know where we're going to end up for sure in the game.
So, like, you might have all the houses like a drab wood color, brown, and then you could change the colors of the highlights, like the trim or whatever.
Correct. You might be able to, like, there'll be the base house color, the trim color, and then you can adjust those as see fit. And I know, memory-wise, it's always more cost-effective to use a palletized texture, limiting the colors to 254 plus black and white. And I don't see why we wouldn't do something like that, especially for the houses in certain cities, that kind of thing.
Did you ever play Ultima Online?
I did not.
Okay. In Ultima, we had dye tubs, and people made some really unique colors, and they did some very unique things with that. And will we have anything like that to where, you know, tailors can make their clothes different colors, or maybe even add patterns to it and such?
I'm going to say yes. I've actually got some concepts and some ideas of those types of things in progress, And I believe one of our commitments for the Kickstarter is giving some player customization, which includes changing the color of your clothes, that sort of
Okay.
thing.
Yeah. That was from CCC, by the way, again.
Okay. I don't know if we're just going to put sliders on there between RGBs and you can just pick essentially any color, or if we're going to do palletized colors, or what we're ultimately going to end up with. But I do know players will have control over clothing.
Well, I really hope that to get the color combinations that we have to go out and find resources and dump them all into a tub to make a particular color.
Right. And we have had conversations about actual dyeing stations or an actual
It's like a
craft
recipe instead of a slider.
Yeah, correct.
It's a lot more real than, if I have to put in certain dyes or whatever, or just think of like Indians, when they would dye things, they would take the plants around them and everything.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's just my 2 cents.
I'm with you. I think my station would be cool. Where we go with those colors, I have visions of, walking into a Viking-esque, very stoic village high in the mountains surrounded with pine trees, and then seeing like bright pink longhouses. So, and I'm sure someone's going to do it. So
Yeah.
We'll have to see. And honestly, we are rolling the game out in stages, kind of the first playables, and we're using different terms than alpha and beta, but we're getting the community involved. And I would bet that part of that experience is going to be, okay, now you can make your houses whatever color you want, and then there will be times when it's like, maybe we shouldn't do that. Let's see how wild the community gets.
You gonna nerf our houses? Our house colors?
We'll see.
It's going to be flamboyant pink, neon green, and yellow.
How open are the yards going to be? I'm kind of really I've been kind of thinking that maybe if it's possible that I want to have maybe like kind of like a farm and maybe like animals and have like a ranch. Like, can you openly place stuff in your yard, or will you only be able to place certain things there, or have you guys really decided that yet?
You will be able to place things in your yard. The level that we want to take it to and what we'll be delivering for the first part of the game, I don't know yet. But I do know even now you can actually place things in your yard.
Okay, I really like that that it's like a whole yard as opposed to like in Ultima Online, you had like a plot of dirt, and like it was like the plot of dirt was like lifted, and like basically it wasn't a yard. It was really weird. So having a whole yard with like a little fence is so much cooler, and I like it a lot.
Good. I'm glad. I think it works much better also.
I see pink flamingos in our future.
Oh, gee.
Hopefully it's pink dippy birds.
Oh, Dippy.
Yes.
Oh, goodness.
Oh. If I go in Monday and they say we need you to concept a dippy bird,
Yeah.
You can blame Frank.
Yeah, I'm sure the crowd will do that anyway. I'm sure the Hairy Man's already working on it.
that would be
So,
awesome. Harry
yeah.
Man is amazing.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Frank.
Oh, I was going to say, so if you take any object that you get in the game and drop it in your yard, will it stay there, or is it only going to be certain items?
I don't know. No, there's certainly going to be, like we've done so far with the Darkstar Moon Dial and the Darkstar Metronome, there's going to be very special type things that you can put in your yard. I know for myself, I would like to have some type of statue fountain motif that I could have out there in the garden, and I'd actually like to have some trellis with ivy on it, or maybe grapes and grapevines. It would be cool to have ivy running up the side of a knight's keep or something. I don't know if we're going to be able to do that the first round.
Sounds nice.
I've actually been kind of curious. As a backer, when are we going to be getting access to like the early builds and whatnot?
Chris is going to be best suited to answer that question for sure.
Okay.
And actually Star also. And I'm trying to think of how much of... So I know things. I don't know if they're public, though.
Okay.
Better not say that.
Right,
Yeah,
I'm going to plead
don't want to
the
get you in
fifth on that
trouble.
one. But yes, we already have multiple dates for multiple rollouts to the community, and part of that is getting everyone's participation and getting their feedback and just doing a test run and seeing what's fun and what's not and how many people paint their houses pink. I don't know. We'll see.
From the chat room, Half a Moon says, "Why do certain MMOs have such clean and smooth animations like WoW, while others seem to run fairly rigid or clunky-like? Is it a matter of time spent, or programs used, or talent? What's the obstacle? Is one of those like an easier way or something like that?"
It's actually multiple issues. There are an amazing amount of talented animators, and if they have the time and tools, they can do some exceptional work. In certain cases, especially with large games like MMOs or games that you would put on a console or handheld, you have memory limitations. And sometimes the decision is made to where, okay, the movement between specific animations, the tweaker that you have between when you go from a walk to a run pose, that slider, sometimes they'll give that up to buy more memory space for something else. And in doing that, sometimes the animation can be a bit jerky. Also, the type of gameplay that you have is really important. If you're playing a first-person shooter, a well-designed one, your weapon is very much like a character. They have a very specific look. You might be able to customize it a bit. It has really interesting animations when you reload and fire your weapon. Makes a different sound, that sort of thing. So animations, depending on the game and what you're doing, and that goes for textures, environments versus characters, all that sort of thing. It's very much a balancing act among a lot of people trying to figure out what is the best thing about creating this entertainment experience. What becomes our priority? And sometimes people just do not prioritize the animation of the character very high.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That was a long-winded answer. I like the pirate hat, Frank.
Yes,
Yeah,
Frank.
I'm paying tribute to the dev chats we've had to watch.
Oh, you've had to watch? Is it like a chore?
Yeah. No, they twisted my arm. They made me do it. No, I was just sitting here listening to them, and I was remembering that they were playing with the Google effects, so I thought I would too. I mean, we're talking about art, by the way, so...
Right.
Do you think the textures in the final version of the game are going to be significantly better than what we saw in the demo, or do you think it's going to probably stay about the same?
They're going to get better.
Okay. I mean, I think that they were pretty good compared to. I mean, I know what you guys had at the Kickstarter was essentially just a mock-up that you threw together.
Right.
And so I think that the progress you've made is amazing. But I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what it's going to look like in the future.
Yes, it's our art lead, Michael Hutchinson, known as Hutch, has an amazing eye, and he is in the process, even now, even before the RTX demo was completed, of refining and increasing the quality of those textures. A big part of creating wonderful textures is shader technology. There is technology that exists with something called subsurface scattering that you can put on the character, and you can actually get the translucency of flesh, or you could put it on a marble statue and you can get the translucency of the marble. There are things that are called parallax or bump offset that as you look at a brick or stone wall and your eye moves around it, it will actually look like you're looking at a real stone wall. That tech exists in Unity, and right now we just have the basic Unity stuff, and developing shaders is going to be one of the things that we're pushing for our next couple of milestones. Because you're right, honestly, the materials are, okay, there are some things that look pretty good, and then there's some other things that just aren't to the visual quality that they need to be. But they will get there.
In video game development, what stage are the graphics, set to where this is what we're launching with? I mean, do graphics usually come right at the end, or how does that work?
Wow.
Or is it just haphazard? Keep working on it until it's done.
No, it's actually, I'm going to go back to your sculpture analogy.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much like if you start with a block of clay and you want to end up with Michelangelo's David, you work away at it. And if you think of a prototype for Shroud of the Avatar as just the block of clay, hey, we have something here that we're going to start sculpting and making beautiful. And our RTX demo is the cut into the clay that defines, oh, hey, that kind of looks like Michelangelo's David. That's about where we're at visually. There'll be a lot more coming online as the project develops. And as you continue through that process, usually right there at the end, you're tweaking lighting, you're tweaking your textures and your materials, you're making it look the best it can be. So we polish it right up to the end.
How do you deal with people who, like at the Kickstarter level and at the Rooster Teeth demo that we just saw and everything, they look at that and they say, oh, the game just doesn't look good enough. I'm ignoring it. I'm going away. What do you say to people like that, or how do you address that reaction?
Well, gameplay is king. And as we had talked about earlier, Minecraft, I think all of us have spent a fair amount of hours playing Minecraft. Minecraft is not a pretty game, but it is now because we've learned how to see it. With contemporary games, and especially since we are in a new console cycle, publishers and big money companies really love to push technology. It's this next generation of games, everything, you will be able to attain the level of an animated film very easily. Honestly, I think you could do that with this current generation, personally. And I've seen it. Making things look better is, something that we're all marketed as, oh, hey, this is really important. You want to play Call of Duty 4 or 5 or wherever we're at because it looks so good. The truth is, what we really want is we all want to play a game that we enjoy and we have an excellent entertainment experience and we're talking about afterwards and we're thinking, man, I can't wait until I can get home so I can play that again. So people that are concerned about how the game looks, you can let them know, hey, we're early in the production process, we're proving out the tech first, which is always the right thing to do. Games have never failed because the art didn't get done. Games fail because the tech isn't done. So Chris very much spearheaded, we're going to get the tech done first, and we have. I've seen other... Actually, I'm not going to go there. So to that end, gameplay is king. Once people start playing Shroud of the Avatar, they're going to see how much fun it is, and suddenly what it looks like is not going to be an issue anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I sent to Gina, I don't know if you saw it, but there's another game that they have this really cool development roadmap that's on their site. And I thought it would be really cool if Shroud of the Avatar did something similar. Basically, how it works is they have different parts of the game that you have to develop, and for each part it says, well, we have this much of it done, and this is what we're working on type deal. That way, people kind of have an idea of what you guys are working on, and they're not always like, oh, when is it done? When is it done? It's like kind of like we kind of have an idea of what you're working on and what's done and what's not done type deal. So I just thought that that might be a cool idea for you guys too.
Yes, actually, that kind of thing has made its way all the way to the top, and we are in the process of revamping not only the information that we're sharing with the community, but how we are sharing information with people who aren't part of the community yet, and getting them excited about Shroud of the Avatar. So I know with the Dark Star Moondial and the Metronome, those are both big pushes for the community and getting people excited about what we're doing.
I was really excited to see that. It was pretty cool, and I would also be. I hope that you guys have some kind of a store type deal coming soon, because I was looking at the Star Citizen and they have all kinds of like add-ons and whatever you can buy. But I'm more interested. I mean, like I really want a Shroud of the Avatar T-shirt so I can wear it around and people will be like, "What's that?" And I'd be like, "Shroud of the Avatar, come on, guys, go buy it."
Okay, design project for you.
I had another question. When you guys were doing the Kickstarter, you guys had some cross-promotional stuff going on with Cloud Imperium and whatnot. Are you guys going to be doing any more of that?
I don't know.
Seeing as him and Richard go back to the old Origin days, I mean...
Yeah. I know there has been conversations, and I don't know where that's going to end up, and I certainly don't want to give away anything. And
I keep asking you tricky questions.
So I do know those conversations continue. If there will or won't be some type of cross-promotional thing, I don't know.
Yeah, because I've backed both of them, so...
Yeah, and I have some ideas of things that I think would be really cool. I just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So we got time for one or two more questions.
Oh, I have a question about the monthly bonuses that you plan to be giving. You know, you're doing the Metronome and the Moondial and a bunch of others for July.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to have 14 months worth of extra items added to the game?
That's my understanding currently. I know we're going to do at least one a month. So more than that, we'll see. And that may or may not change, I don't know, but that's my understanding. We're going to have at least one a month, those special really cool things that you could have.
More than we have room for in the house.
Yes, so you'll have to buy a bigger house.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm not going
it's
any
a
bigger than I
marketing
have.
plan.
And we'll have to build more continents, and yeah, you can see where this is going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could have flying houses like in WildStar.
Oh, sorry. Did I just voice my opinion? Yeah, I meant to keep that to myself. Okay. Any final questions?
Actually, I did have one.
Okay.
I have always been interested in weapon crafting, not necessarily just like ingredient equals sword or whatnot, but I've loved the idea of like maybe having like put in a molding system in the game to create your own weapons the way they're shaped, and then the stats are added on via enchantments or whatnot. Because I'm a big fan of anime swords, and as most of us who know, anime swords are huge and they look freaking awesome. But unfortunately, game developers seem to hate anime, so they'll never put it in. But if I can make my own sword.
I don't think it's a question of hating anime. I think it's a question of the logistics and the physics of, a 6-foot tall person swinging a 10-foot long sword, and, where do you carry it? You throw it on your back, the collision volume's big enough that you might not be able to fit through doorways, and then suddenly all
Oh,
of
yeah. I'm sorry, sir, your sword's too big. You can't come in.
And then it's like, okay, well, maybe he could drag his sword around. Then you've got a whole new set of animations, and then you've got collision issues because he's dragging this big sword. So I don't think it's a question they don't like anime. I know I like anime, and I know lots of people in the industry like anime. It's just there's some technical things to figuring that out. I do like your idea about crafting weapons, and I do know there is weapon crafting. Where that's going to be when we roll out the game, I don't know, and I don't know what level we're actually going to take it to, but crafting is a big part of Shroud of the Avatar, so that's on the docket. You can expect to see that at some point.
Cool. Well, I want to thank you for your time. I really appreciate you coming to chat with us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Now, tell everybody what your show is, your Pen of the Avatar.
So my show is Pen of the Avatar, and it's every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. And I do a live show where I am drawing concepts for Shroud of the Avatar. And if you watch live and you're actually in the chats, you can participate and share feedback. And I invite you to do that.
So he can tell you, I want that sword to be bigger?
Yes, that's where all the cool ideas are coming from.
Yes.
It was on the metronome. Someone chimed in, and metronomes have a measurement. And he said, how come that's not a spine? It's like, well, you hadn't said that yet. That's a great idea. So I made it a skeletal spine. The fantastic part for me, the thing I love about this project is I get to create art with a group of people. They share their ideas. Most of them are like really solid. They did tell me like the week before that I need to say something sucks, but I haven't heard anything that really sucks yet.
Yeah. Okay.
So so if you want to have a voice and you want to participate firsthand in the creation of Shroud of the Avatar, watch me and Gina every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, and tell us what you think. Let us know what your thoughts are with what we're concepting that day.
Okay,
love to hear
and
from
that's there's links probably on the shroudoftheavatar.com to you. Is it
Yes.
is it like youtube.com/Pen of the Avatar, or what's the?
It's actually on YouTube. Portalarium Austin is where you can find
hard.
it. And if you can follow me on Facebook. I've opened up following on Facebook and post every week when the show is going to be and ideally what we're going to be doing. Sometimes it changes, but that's part of the creative process. Got to be very flexible. So you can find us on YouTube, you can follow me on Facebook, and I believe there is the YouTube link is actually on Shroud of the Avatar. And I think I know you can follow Richard, Shroud of the Avatar, Forsaken Virtues. There's lots of ways to find it. So
Okay, cool.
we are a big and growing community. It's really exciting. Marquee Dragon.
So, okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and thank you to all the rest of you that joined, you in the chat room, and those of you who were able to make it into the Hangout. And so we'll have to get you on sometime again before launch.
Yes,
And,
definitely. Actually, I'm really having a good time doing this, so I might come back in a couple of weeks if that's okay.
Okay. Hey, I won't turn you down. So,
Excellent.
yes.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you again. And take care, everybody.